Hi, it's Katrina. From the Lamborghini of the ancient world to a surprising find at a yard sale, here are 9 incredible recent discoveries. Number 9. Roman Chariot. Earlier this year, archaeologists announced the discovery of an exceptionally well-preserved ceremonial chariot near a villa outside Pompeii that, like the rest of the surrounding area, was completely buried in ash when Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD. This place nearby, called Civita Juliana, is getting constantly looted since most of the security goes to Pompeii. Looters have actually built a 250-foot network of tunnels already to be able to steal artifacts underground with nobody noticing. The tunnel just missed this cart. Made from iron, bronze, and tin, the chariot is adorned with depictions of nymphs, satyrs, and cupids. The chariot revealed the well-preserved remains of 3 horses, including one that was still saddled and harnessed. Smithsonian Magazine reports that another major find made at Civita Juliana came to light last November, when researchers discovered the remains of a wealthy man of 30 or 40 and a younger enslaved man, both eerily frozen in their final moments. While vehicles that were used for practical purposes have been discovered nearby, this is the first ceremonial chariot archaeologists have found. Archaeologist at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, Eric Poehler, said he was astounded. He said many of the vehicles he studies are wagons, like a standard station wagon today to take your kids to soccer practice. But this was like a Lamborghini. It would have been used for community festivals such as parades and processions, Pompeii Archaeological Site Director Massimo Ossana told Reuters. Described by Italy's Culture Ministry as an unprecedented find, the discovery advances our understanding of the ancient world. Excavations at Pompeii are still ongoing, despite being rediscovered long ago during the 16th century. Roughly 2/3 of the 165-acre site have been unearthed, meaning more fascinating discoveries are yet to be found. Number 8. Mayan Stairway Hieroglyphics. An ancient Maya stairway rising 69 feet into the air features 62 steps covered with over 1,250 blocks of stone. Each one is carved with hieroglyphics numbering over 2,200, making this staircase the longest Maya text ever discovered, and no one was able to read it until recently. It tells quite an interesting story. Around 1,300 years ago, a Maya ambassador named Ajpach brokered an alliance between the powerful Maya king of Copan, who was headquartered in what is now Honduras, and the Maya king of Calakmul in modern-day southern Mexico. The translated text found in Wall's burial also tells of how he traveled 350 miles to make it happen, but the alliance failed, causing him to lose his fortune and slip into relative obscurity until his death. A new study describing the inscription emphasizes how politics could affect the social ranking of a non-royal elite of late Classic period Maya society. We don't know very much about non-royal life or their burial practices. The stairway was discovered in an ancient Maya plaza in El Palmar, Mexico, near the borders of Belize and Guatemala. Ajpach inherited his position as ambassador from his father. He spent his career traveling from city to city on diplomatic missions, carrying a banner to identify himself along the way. The man was buried in a small chamber adjacent to a platform he constructed, a type of apparatus that only powerful individuals were allowed to build, and which were used as stages on which to perform rituals for audiences. Although Ajpach achieved an elite status throughout his lifetime, his teeth and bones show signs of illness or malnourishment, which he may have suffered as a child, and he was only buried with 2 clay pots. He also suffered from heart and dental problems as an adult. In a statement, senior researcher Kenichiro Tsukamoto summed up the findings in his own words, stating many people say that the elite enjoy their lives, but the story is usually more complex. Life is always complicated, no matter who you are. Number 7. Oldest wooden statue. New research is shedding light on the true age of the oldest known surviving wooden statue, which is evidently even older than experts previously thought. Known as the Shigir idol after the peat bog where it was discovered in Russia's Ural Mountains in 1890, the artifact measures 17.4 feet tall and is decorated with geometric motifs and several human faces. It was originally dated back to around 11,500 years ago in a 2018 study, which averaged out the results of radiocarbon-dated samples ranging between 12,500 years ago and 8,600 years ago. But when the team of scientists took a second look at the statue, they realized that wax and wood pigment had been used to repair it over the last 120 years, and as recently as the 1990s. This may have altered some of the radiocarbon samples by making the idol appear younger than it is. After revisiting their original findings and examining the samples taken from the innermost part of the artifact, farthest away from these newer materials, the team now estimates the wood's age at around 12,250 years old. In determining the age of the actual artifact, they considered the fact that the statue was made with wood from the heart of the tree, which would have died long before it was used. Because we are dealing with a sample from the central part of the trunk, the felling of the tree can be dated to about 150 years later, the study says. With that background, it can be suggested to date the sculpture to around 10,100 BC. The idol's imagery, which contains elements of late Paleolithic and early Mesolithic artwork seen in other artifacts dating back around 12,100 years, supports this theory. Number 6. Ancient Australian DNA in an unlikely place. In 2015, researchers discovered that several indigenous South American tribes carry traces of ancient Australian DNA. Expanding on these findings, a team from the University of Sao Paulo recently found that this genetic presence is more widespread than they originally thought. A senior researcher said the results showed that the Australasian genetic signal, previously described as exclusive to Amazonian groups, was also identified in people from the Pacific coast. The previous study established a connection between the people of Australasia, which includes indigenous Australians and Melanesians, people from the islands of Oceania, and the Caritiana and the Surui tribes in Brazil. After sampling a larger data set from 383 indigenous participants, Hunemeyer and her team found the shared genetic marker dubbed the Y signal in several more tribes, including the Chotuna people of Peru and the Guarani, Kiowa, and the Chavante people of Brazil. Describing the link between Australasian and Native American DNA as one of the most intriguing and poorly understood events in human history, the new study confirms researchers' suspicions that there were more genetic connections like this to be found. Hunemeyer and co-lead researcher Castro e Silva emphasized how DNA is an ally to unravel unrecorded histories and populations that European colonization obscured. Experts theorize that the people who crossed the Bering Land Bridge into the Americas around 20,000 years ago, in other words, the first Americans, started their journey from Southeast Asia carrying Australian DNA with them. The first settlers lived mostly along the coast, from Alaska to southern Chile, before a second wave of people moved inland and into the Amazon. While this theory fails to explain why North American indigenous groups lack the Y signal, it's an important piece of the puzzle in unraveling ancient human migration patterns and indigenous history. And now for a lucky find at a yard sale. But first, want to give a big shout out to Jerain Naidu and Laura Eisenbarth. You guys rock! If you are new here, be sure to subscribe for more videos like these. Number 5. A yard sale score. Sometime last year, a yard sale customer in Connecticut bought a porcelain bowl bearing a floral design for $35. Something about the object compelled the buyer to consult experts at Sotheby's, who identified it as a rare 15th century Chinese bowl dating back to the Yongle Emperor, the third ruler of the Ming Dynasty, who reigned from 1403 to 1424. Dang, what kind of yard sale was this? Only 6 other companion bowls are known to exist, putting the recently discovered artifact's estimated value somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000. But much to the surprise of its owner and even the appraisers, it recently sold for $721,800 at the Sotheby's Important Chinese Art Auction in New York after a battle between 4 bidders. The bowl was made for the Yongle court, which introduced a new artistic style to China that the Sotheby's listing described as immediately recognizable, never surpassed, and defining the craft still in the 18th century. Angela McAteer, Sotheby's head of Chinese Works of Art department in New York, said in a statement, "Upon viewing the bowl for the first time, our team immediately recognized the quality of this undisputed gem, and it is a reminder that precious works of art remain hidden in plain sight, just waiting to be found." Have you ever found anything cool at a yard sale or a secondhand store? Anything like that? Let me know in the comments below. Number 4. Deepest known shipwreck. On October 25, 1944, during the World War II Battle of Leyte Gulf, the U.S. Navy destroyer USS Johnston sank to the bottom of the Philippine Sea off Samar Island. The 377-foot-long vessel was rediscovered in 2019 at its final resting place, nearly 21,325 feet below the water's surface. Last month, an exploration team descended almost 4 miles in a submersible to reach the ship, completing the deepest known shipwreck dive in history. Victor Vescovo, the submersible's pilot, tweeted that the team located the front 2/3 of the ship upright and intact and surveyed the vessel over 2 8-hour dives, while also paying their respects to the 186 crew members who perished in the battle. The hull number 557 is still visible, and several fixtures remain in place, including full 5-inch gun turrets, twin torpedo racks, and multiple gun mounts. The USS Johnston also bears the damage it sustained from the Japanese Navy battleship Yamato, which at the time was the largest warship ever constructed, according to team navigator and historian Park Stevenson. Navy records show that 141 of the ship's 327 crew members survived, while around 50 were killed by enemy action and 45 died from their injuries on rafts. Captain Ernest Evans and 91 other crew members initially survived the sinking and made it onto the rafts, but were never seen or heard from again. Number 3. Who were the Hobbits? Nicknamed the Hobbits for their markedly small stature compared to modern humans and many of our ancestors, Homo floresiensis and Homo luzonensis are extinct species that scientists originally believed were our distant relatives. But new research indicates that they may occupy a much closer branch to us on the family tree through possible interbreeding with the extinct archaic species known as the Denisovans, a close Neanderthal relative that interbred with us when they were still around. The study detected relatively high concentrations of Denisovan DNA in modern people living in the islands of Southeast Asia, suggesting that the ancestors of modern Papuans and South Asians interbred with a branch of the Denisovans. But no Denisovan fossils have ever been found in the region, leading the team to wonder if either or both of the Hobbit species were actually southern Denisovans. H. floresiensis and H. luzonensis went extinct between 50,000 and 60,000 years ago, long after humans began migrating out of Africa. These geographical and time overlaps with our species makes the idea of us and them breeding entirely plausible. It could perhaps explain the conspicuous absence of the Denisovan fossils scientists expected to find near modern populations containing their DNA. There are a lot of unknowns when it comes to untangling the messy web of human DNA and establishing if, how, and where ancient hominid species intersected. And some scholars disagree that the Hobbits are more closely related to us than scientists originally thought, noting that their established presence in Southeast Asia as far back as 1 million to 700,000 years ago was too early for them to be Denisovans. Number 2. Oldest bedding in Scandinavia. Sometime during the 7th century, 2 respected warriors in what is now Sweden were buried in boats atop soft, feather-stuffed pillows. The lavish bedding is unique among the 15 boat burials at the Valsgard Iron Age Cemetery near the country's southeastern coast. It contains graves dating between the 3rd century BC and the 12th century AD. Known as Valsgard 7 and Valsgard 8, the richly equipped boats that the warriors were buried in are positioned with their sterns pointing toward the nearby river, perhaps as a send-off to the afterlife. The deceased were laid to rest with shields over their bodies and helmets, swords and knives beside them. There were several animals in the graves, including horses, birds, and a decapitated Eurasian eagle owl, which may have had ritual significance in the burial. A new study dates the pillows to roughly 1,400 years ago, making them Scandinavia's oldest known bedding-related artifacts. Thanks to their remarkably preserved state, they gave researchers a rare opportunity to study the feathers, which degrade quickly and consequently have a limited presence in the archaeological record. Published in the Journal of Archaeological Science reports, the research describes an analysis of the feathers, which may have had symbolic meaning. Those used in Valsgard 7 were from ducks, geese, landfowl, such as chickens, songbirds, wading birds, and the beheaded eagle owl. Poor guy. Their presence suggests that Nordic funerary traditions involving bird feathers that are known to date back to the 18th century may have gotten their start much earlier. Number 1. Antikythera Man. One of the most famous shipwrecks of the ancient world is probably the Antikythera Shipwreck, discovered off the coast of Greece near the island of the same name. You've probably heard of it already because of the famous Antikythera mechanism, considered to be the world's oldest computer. It may have been used to plan religious rituals, agricultural activities, and perhaps even the Olympic Games. The wreck was first discovered in 1900, but underwater missions have been ongoing. And now, thanks to new advanced equipment, underwater archaeologists have been able to uncover even more. Most of the site has remained unexplored because of how deep it is and because of the shape of the sea floor, which makes it difficult to access. There are hundreds of treasures that have been found at the site, including bronze and marble sculptures, coins, gold jewelry, and perhaps even more important, a skeleton. With new technology, scientists can now analyze the DNA of an ancient mariner. Human remains from ancient shipwrecks are extremely uncommon, as you can imagine. The man may have been trapped below deck when the ship hit the rocks and sank. More human remains and precious cargo might still be at the underwater site, and the international team is hoping to uncover even more of the shipwreck secrets. Thanks for watching! Which discovery was your favorite? Let me know in the comments below, and remember to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next video. Bye!